You are calm, you are quiet, you are in control. And somehow that's exactly why they're about to turn you into the villain. You are standing there completely still. You aren't raising your voice. You aren't interrupting. You are doing exactly what you were taught a mature person does during conflict. You are de-escalating. You are listening. And then the person across from you looks at you with genuine hurt, or maybe disgust, and says the one sentence that bypasses logic and hits your nervous system directly. You're so cold. You just don't get it, do you? In that instant, your stability, the very thing you believed was a virtue, becomes a weapon against you. You aren't being respected for your control. You are being accused of emotional abandonment. This is the moment the trap closes. You are no longer inside a misunderstanding. You are inside a psychological inversion where your greatest strength is reframed as your fatal flaw. And the more you try to prove you aren't cruel, the more power you quietly surrender. To understand why this happens, you have to understand the weakness illusion. Modern social dynamics confuse expression with connection. We're taught that care must be visible, emotional, reactive, performative. Intensity becomes proof of sincerity. Chaos becomes authenticity. But you don't operate like that. You likely have a high processing mind. You don't react immediately because your system is running simulations. You're layering information. You're measuring tone, history, consequence, trajectory. Silence, for you, isn't avoidance. It's computation. It's containment. It's how you prevent unnecessary damage. To the person across from you, that processing looks like indifference. They're running on dopamine loops. Emotional reaction equals reward. When you remain steady, you deny that chemical payoff. You interrupt the rhythm of escalation. And because they cannot read your internal state, they project their own insecurity onto your silence. If they were this quiet, it would mean withdrawal, resentment, manipulation. So they assume you must be doing the same. Your pause becomes indecision. Your boundary becomes coldness. Your restraint becomes passivity. This isn't accidental. It's a defensive reframing. If they can define your rationality as cruelty, they regain moral leverage. They become the injured party. And in modern social hierarchies, perceived victimhood holds authority. You believe you're holding space. They believe you're withholding connection. And because you trust logic, you make the critical mistake of believing this perception can be corrected through explanation. You assume that clarity will fix distortion. But intention doesn't shape outcomes. Structure does. The moment someone labels you cold, the power dynamic shifts instantly. You feel it in your body before you can articulate it. You break your frame. You defend your character. You explain that you care. You soften your tone. You may even apologize for your regulation. At that moment, you've entered a barter system of identity. You're no longer an equal participant. You're a defendant negotiating your legitimacy. This has two consequences. First, explanation signals submission. Biologically and psychologically, defense lowers perceived status. Your conscious mind believes you're clarifying. Your nervous system communicates uncertainty. You trade stability for approval. You trade mystery for comfort. And while people claim they want clarity, what they instinctively respect is certainty. Second, this becomes a dominant scan. They're testing whether your internal state collapses under external pressure. They're probing to see whether your emotional center belongs to you or to them. If your tone shifts the moment they accuse you, if your posture changes the moment they withdraw approval, your nervous system has already handed over authority. If you abandon your position to match their emotional demand, you fail the scan. You teach them that your reality is negotiable. You teach them that your regulation depends on their validation. You become predictable. And in human hierarchies, predictability erodes authority. A system that can be destabilized by accusation cannot contain uncertainty, cannot anchor stability, cannot lead. You believe you're being kind. To the nervous system observing you, you're simply low resistance. And low resistance invites continued encroachment. Over time, this dynamic doesn't just shape relationships, it reshapes identity. You begin to anticipate accusation before it happens. You pre-edit your reactions. You dilute your clarity. You soften your edges before anyone touches them. You shrink your presence to avoid triggering discomfort in others. Your nervous system becomes externally governed. Your internal compass slowly hands decision-making authority to outside perception. You stop asking what feels true. You start asking what will be accepted. Externally, respect erodes. Internally, something far more dangerous happens. When your natural calm is repeatedly framed as defect, you begin erasing yourself. You internalize the accusation. You wonder if you're broken, if you're emotionally defective, if something is wrong with your wiring. You override your own nervous system. You become a calm faker. You perform the correct expressions. You simulate enthusiasm. You mirror concern. Not because you feel it, but because you're avoiding the accusation of being inhuman. Inside, you're exhausted, not from effort, from constant simulation. You spend your bandwidth managing perception instead of inhabiting reality. You run a continuous internal model of how to appear acceptable, how to remain safe, how to avoid triggering misunderstanding. This creates high processor fatigue. Your mind never rests because it's always modeling social threat. Over time, you stop trusting your silence. You start labeling your solitude as defect. You soften your words before they're challenged. You shrink your needs before they're questioned. You adapt into invisibility, and the irony is brutal. This self-abandonment doesn't preserve connection. It accelerates the loss of gravity. You become perfectly reflective, endlessly accommodating, and mirrors hold no weight. People don't stay with mirrors. They get bored of them. You've spent years trying to close the gap between your intention and their perception, believing that one day the right explanation will finally resolve the distortion. But this gap is not a communication failure, it's a structural mismatch. You're waiting for permission to remain regulated. You're waiting for validation that your silence is safe. That permission never arrives. The cycle breaks when you stop auditing your own reality. Rationality is not cruelty. Containment is not abandonment. The person who explains their silence has already surrendered it. The person who inhabits their silence creates gravity. You don't need to prove that you're good inside someone else's narrative. As long as you fight to be understood, you allow others to define what understanding means. You don't need to be validated to be real. You only need to remain unmoved. Let them call it cold. You know it's simply the temperature of stone. Stone does not explain itself. It simply remains heavy. If you found yourself in this silence, stay. You've spent so long trying to be understood that you forgot what it feels like to just exist. The world taught you to explain, to smooth the edges, to apologize for your depth. But this stillness, it isn't emptiness. It's where everything that's true about you stops performing. You don't need to translate your piece into something someone else can read. Let them miss it. Let them name it wrong. You are not here to be decoded. You are here to remain. And if that sounds unfamiliar, that's because you've mistaken motion for meaning for most of your life. This, right now, is what meaning feels like when it finally stops moving.